Now, to bring a story like Harry Potter from the page to the screen, the starting point is your original novel, written by you, of course, J.K. Rowling. And the script is based on that novel, but is written by the screenwriter, of course, you, Steve Kloves. Can you explain both how you work together to produce the final script? Because it must be very, very different writing a book as compared to writing a film.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I just steal her best stuff.
That's basically it. And I don't sue.
No, I think the thing, what's always been great about Jo is that she's, from the beginning, she gave me tremendous elbow room. But when you're in the middle of a series like this, it's important that I talk to Jo along the way and ask her, beyond advice, just simple advice on certain sequences and things, but just, am I on the right path? And Jo's always been good about, you know, she's maddening in the sense she will not tell me what's going to happen, but she will tell me if I'm going down the wrong path.
I've given you more than I've given anyone else, which I probably shouldn't say on screen, or they'll kidnap and torture him. We need him. But yeah, I've told Steve probably more than I've told anyone else, because he needs to know. So, because it's incredibly annoying of me when he says, well, shall we cut that, or I wanted to do this, and I said, well, no, because, you know, in book 6, something will happen and you'll need that in, or you know, that will contradict something that happens, and I can feel him on the end of the emails, and I'm like, do you mind telling me why? So I have told him things. But he's very good at guessing. He's guessed more shrewdly than anyone else, I think.
How frustrating is it for you working slightly in the dark with some of these issues, Steve?
Well, it's frustrating because, you know, you like to know where, when you're writing a character, you like to know where they're going.
I'd tell you if you were dying.
That's nice to know.
Yeah. But you don't need to know at the moment.
I am dying. Hopefully, it's gonna take a while. I think, yeah, it's only, you know, it's frustrating just that, you know, again, it comes down to the details and the magic of those details. And I think just reading the books is such a wonderful experience.
There are so many rich details in the books. Can you tell us how you decide what goes in and what stays out?
I will sometimes ask Jo. I mean, I will say, you know, this detail, you just seem to have cast just a bit more light on this in this scene than the other details. Sometimes I'm wrong, but often she'll say, no, that is going to play. I won't. There's one thing in Chamber, actually, that, you know, Jo indicated will play later in the series. I mean, the hardest thing for me, honestly, is I'm writing a story to which I do not know the end, which is, I'm not going to lie to you, it's been the case sometimes in my own originals, but I assume I will find an end. With this, it's just I'm writing a story over a decade, and it's, you know, and I keep waiting, you know, keep hoping that Jo will slip up and actually tell me something, you know.
In this movie, we've seen the kids develop from the first film. Can you tell us about the relationship between Harry, Ron and Hermione, and how that is developing film by film?
Well, I think it is developing in the film as it does in the books, which is to say that they're much stronger together than apart, and they're much more aware in the second film of their particular strengths. So they're more effective. The children are able to do more complex things, for example, the Polyjuice potion. And also Chris, in the second film, has kind of foreshadowed what I don't do until the fourth book, which is that you get hints of certain feelings between the three of them that belong to a sort of slightly more mature person.
Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, you're seeing in Chamber that magic's becoming a bit second nature to them, at least simple magic is, and that basically it's, you know, a little bit of knowledge will get you into a lot of trouble, and I think that's what we're seeing in the second one, is that they're getting more mature, but they're still, you know, it's a dangerous kind of knowledge.
How do you feel about what the kids were like in this movie?
You know, the first thing you notice when you watch the movie is that, you know, Harry and Ron's voices have dropped about 2 octaves, which is just bizarre. And suddenly they're not these cute little moppet heads running around. It's like, you know, children will grow, you know.
Steve, Hermione is a character who you've said in the past is one of your favourites. Does that make her easier to write?
Yeah, I mean, I like writing all three, but I've always loved writing Hermione because she's a tremendous character for a lot of reasons for a writer, which also she can carry exposition in a wonderful way because you just assume she read it in a book. If I need to tell the audience something...
Absolutely right. I find that all the time in the books. If you need to tell your readers something, just you put it in her. There are only 2 characters you can put it convincingly into their dialogue, and one is Hermione, the other is Dumbledore.
Yeah,
because in both cases, you accept it's plausible that they have. Well, Dumbledore knows pretty much everything anyway, but that Hermione has read it somewhere, so she's handy.
Yeah, she's really handy, and she's also just, I think, tremendously entertaining. There's something about her, you know, her fierce intellect coupled with a complete lack of understanding of how she affects people sometimes that I just find charming and irresistible to write.
Does Dumbledore speak for you?
Oh yes, very much so. Yeah, Dumbledore often speaks for me.
I mean, how do you see Dumbledore, Steve?
I think Dumbledore's a fascinating character because I think he obviously sort of imparts great wisdom that comes from experience, but I've always felt that Dumbledore bears such a tremendous dark burden, and he knows secrets, and I think in many ways he bears the weight of the future of the wizard world, which is being challenged, and the only way to that he can keep that at bay, the darkness, is to be sort of whimsical and humorous, and I think that's just it's just a really interesting thing. I think he's a character of so many layers, and I think when he does say something, that it is our choices and not our abilities. I just think coming from him is somehow, it doesn't feel like a sermon, it doesn't feel like a message, it just feels like, an absolute truth. And it goes down easy, and I like that about him. But that's what I like about the books. I've always said that I thought that Joe's writing is deceptively, profound, which is that you never feel there are messages in there, but there's a lot of things being dealt with in a very sort of clever way, and they're never pretentious, the books, and I think it's why kids love reading them.
I mean, you say that you don't set out to put particular messages in each book, they grow organically, but do you think it's important to have the right messages there when they do emerge?
Well, obviously, in the wizard world passes for racism, that's deeply entrenched in the whole plot. There's this issue going on about the bad side really advocating a kind of genocide to exterminate what they see as these half-blood people. So that was obviously very conscious, but the other messages do grow organically. But I've never set out to teach anyone anything. It's been more of an expression of my views and feelings than sitting down and deciding what is today's message. And I do think that, although I never again sat down consciously and thought about this, I do think, judging even from my own daughter, that children respond much better to that than to thought for the day.
What was the most important difference in doing the story for Chamber of Secrets as opposed to the first film?
We probably had more contact on the first film, but then we probably needed more contact on the first film because we were establishing a relationship that has now lasted 2 years and is going to last hopefully longer. So that was really about getting to know how what we needed from each other. So it's probably a good sign that we had less contact on Chamber because I think there's a lot of trust there. I mean, I was very prickly when I met Steve, because I knew they'd chosen this American guy. Even though he wrote and directed one of my favourite films, was Fabulous Baker Boys, I still thought, well, he's American. Not to be, I don't know, I was most worried about meeting Steve. He was the writer, he was going to be ripping apart my baby. And turns out I really like him, so that worked.
How do you communicate? How does all that work, and how often?
Varies to what we're doing at the time. Owls mainly, obviously, a bit of flu powder.
How does this film differ from the first?
I think it is, I think we would both say, an easier book to transfer into a film, isn't it? The first one is episodic. You have individual adventures. It chops and changes more. And I remember when we were working on the script of Philosopher's Stone, that was something that came up continually, wasn't it? That you have these sort of discrete adventures. And Chamber is a more linear structure, so it was easier to translate to screen, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, though I thought it was going to be easier than
it actually turned out to be.
Because you do have that sort of Tom Riddle moment where Tom explains it all, and that's always challenging in a movie.
Yeah.
And also, what's interesting about, I think, what makes Chamber interesting is that things are occurring that you don't really quite understand until Tom explains them at the end. So you've got to work toward that moment and hope you can hold the audience during that moment. But there's no question it had more of a it just had more of a tight plot to sort of play out.
And what were the biggest challenges for you in this film?
I mean, the challenge always for me is, keeping it from being 4 hours, because I like everything, that... What I honestly think is magical about what Joe does is the details. And so my first drafts are always chock full of details. I mean, I think the thing for me is the things I respond to sometimes, are hard to sort of put in proportion. I mean, I was really interested in the whole mudblood thread. So that became a very interesting emotional thing for me to write in the script. I don't know that it's still there in the way that I saw it entirely. But that was, those, you want to give them some of those things weight in some way, so that becomes the challenge in many ways. But it's mainly compression.
And Joe, were there any bits of Chamber of Secrets that didn't reflect the way that you originally saw it in your mind?
It's interesting what Steve says about the mudblood theme, because I would agree, but that's always pressure of time and space with the film. That is a stronger theme in the book, and yet it is present in the film. But for me, I suppose, when I look back on that book, or I think about that book, that is the time in the overall series where the issue of pure blood becomes very important. So, yeah, maybe more weight to that.
What stands out most in this film?
It was scary. I've always thought Chamber of Secrets, people underestimate how scary that book is. And in fact, it's the book I've got the most complaints about, bizarrely. Possibly because people got upset at Chamber of Secrets and didn't carry on reading the rest of the book. So, and I think that's certainly translated to the screen. A couple of really frightening moments.
The visual effects are a huge part of bringing the magic to life. In this film, we have Dobby, we have the pixies, we have Fawkes, we have the basilisk. What do you make of the effects in this movie?
Dobby's wonderful. Dobby's really, really good. And the mandrakes, superb. I really love the mandrakes.
Is that a big challenge for you, Steve, getting the effects, or getting those scenes right?
No, it's easy for me, because I just write it and dream it,
and
then someone else has to actually do it. No, but I'm amazed when you see something like the mandrakes, which is really, it's essentially puppetry.
Which part of Chamber of Secrets were you most excited to see on screen?
I was most worried about the spiders. Because you see these old sci-fi movies where you have giant spiders, and they're always hysterically funny. They're never scary. And it's easy to write a scene like that in a novel and make it scary. But when I started thinking about how we were going to actually see that, in fact, it is extremely frightening. They're the most frightening large spiders I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I had the same concern. I just thought, as I was writing, I was saying, how are we going to do this?
Yeah.
You've got, got Aragog saying, who goes there, basically? This giant spider, and you're saying, this is just going to be hysterical. I'm sorry, I'm laughing as I'm writing it. Imagining it being... Yeah, but the one thing you learn about movies is that the thing you're the most worried about often is the thing that's not a problem. And the thing you don't worry about is a complete disaster. So I've found that all... I mean, it's funny, you talk about the scares in the movie. I mean, I know the thing that terrified my son the most in the first movie was opening the book and the book screaming. And I think it was because it was something he could identify with, which is he could take a book off the shelf and open it, and there might be a face in there screaming. He wasn't scared by the other things at all.
But I think I wrote those are the sort of details I write because that would scare me.
Yeah.
I read all the time, and just to open something and have it shriek at me. And one thing that I thought was well done in the film, Chamber of Secrets, was the diary. Now, the diary to me is a very scary object, a really, really frightening object. This manipulative little book, the temptation, particularly for a young girl, to pour out her heart to a diary, which was never something I was prone to, but my sister was. And the power of something that answers you back. And at the time when I wrote that, I'd never been in an internet chat room. But I've since thought, well, it's very similar, just typing your deepest thoughts into the ether and getting answers back, and you don't know who is answering you. And so that was always a very scary image to me in the book, and I thought it worked well in the film. You could understand when he started writing to see these things coming back to him. The power of that secret friend in your pocket.
Yeah, I always loved that in the book. I thought that was just one of the great, that someone's writing back to you that you do not know who they are, and there is something inherently ominous in that, but the fact that they also know, they know the secret you want to know. And they're inviting you, it's like a finger beckoning you, but into the past. I always thought that was incredibly interesting concept.
How different has it been working on the script for now the next movie, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban?
Well, we've just started. I mean, I honestly think it's gone as well as any of the others, and I think it's. I mean, personally, I feel it's going to be the best movie.
Yeah,
I think we're at a better place than we've ever been on the script, and we're months from starting shooting. So I think it's the best place we've been. I think 3 could really be interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
Where does 3 stand in your list of favourites, book-wise?
Oh, it is. I know it's very corny and all right to say it, but it is like choosing between your children. It really is. But I have a very soft spot for 3 because of a couple of the characters who crop up there for the first time. Lupin and Black, obviously, very important characters, and yeah, I'm really fond of them.
I mean, so far you've had 2 very successful collaborations on Harry Potter. What are your hopes for the future of the Harry Potter series?
Well, I hope Steve keeps writing the scripts, because I'm used to him now, you know. Just keep being faithful to the books, I suppose. From my point of view, I'm bound to say that, aren't I?
Oh, J.K. Rowling and Steve Kloves, author and scriptwriter. I'm sure we're looking forward very much to the results of your future collaborations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Professor Gilderoy Lockhart is undoubtedly a very celebrated wizard, with awards of distinction lining the walls of his office. The proof is on the parchment. Why, just look at all these honours. Order of Merlin, 3rd class, honorary member of the Dark Force Defence League, 5-time winner of Witch Weekly's Most Charming Smile Award, the Medieval Assembly of European Wizards Bravery Against Fantastic Beasts Award, a British Wizard Dueling Association certificate, and Britain's Best Dressed Wizard Award. He deserves an award for winning so many awards. As you know, there are several books required for your current term at Hogwarts, and all but one were written by none other than Gilderoy Lockhart himself. In Year with the Yeti, you'll discover how Gilderoy gave a Yeti a head cold. More importantly, you'll learn of his favourite colour. Should you wish to denome your garden, be sure to pick up a copy of Gilderoy Lockhart's Guide to Household Pests. Your gnomes will be shouting, "Get off me! Get off me!" in no time. And what Gilderoy Lockhart library would be complete without a copy of Magical Me? They're on display and awaiting Gilderoy's autograph at Flourish and Blots. Other titles include Break with a Banshee, Holidays with Hags, Travels with Trolls, and Voyages with Vampires. Signed copies are available.
Building a scene as magnificent as Dumbledore's office or the many other amazing locations at Hogwarts takes more than wood, nails, plaster and paint. It takes imagination.
How do you create a world that's never been seen?
Filmmaking by its very nature is a collaborative medium, so you make sure that you have the best people working for you. That's the first thing.
For me, and probably for most other designers, there is no real procedure about how you get an idea or where you take it from. Often I find myself staring at a blank sheet of paper.
It starts with the script, which acts as a blueprint for the imagination. Working with the director, the production designer conjures up the look of the story and works with the many artisans to create the world of Harry Potter.
In the case of Dumbledore, I think initially it was the blank sheet of paper, but then it occurred to me that the brief was, this is the boss, you know, this is the big man, he has the best office.
It is meant to be located inside a tower, and so that was something that was discussed at the beginning and something that's reflected in the architecture.
For Dumbledore's office, Stuart and I talked about it briefly, and then he met with a concept artist, and then the drawings were brought to me, and I looked at the drawings and I said, that's perfect. A man of Dumbledore's stature, this is the kind of office he should have. We presented it to some people who said, we can't afford that office. You'll never be able to make that office. Stuart and I said, well, it's Dumbledore's office. He needs to have this staggering office.
Admittedly, this is a big budget film, but even so, every film, however big the budget, has its constraints. You know, the dreams are always more expensive than the purse will allow.
So after a lot of help from our producers in terms of securing the funds to build the office, we were able to begin work on Dumbledore's office.
I think at our busiest, we were probably about 250 construction people with various specialities: carpenters, riggers, plasterers, painters. So all of those skills come together. They take the drawings, the carpenters, literally build the structure of the set. The plasterers come along and put the skin on it, the skin being this gypsum chalk plaster finish. The bit you actually photograph is what the painters do. So it's a kind of relay race, really. All those skills come in one after the other.
The set decorations consist of the furniture, such as the paintings, desks, bookcases, and even the telescope found in Dumbledore's office.
In the case of Dumbledore's office, there are script requirements. The outer room, there have to be portraits of previous headmasters, and they're all sleeping and snoring. And so the first room had to be predominantly these portraits, which were all commissioned. Obviously, you can't go out and rent portraits of wizards sleeping. I mean, they do not exist. So a team of 4 or 5 artists painted wizard portraits. Dumbledore, he's interested in all things celestial, in astronomy, in scientific instruments, and so he has the most extraordinary telescope.
We thought it was important to have that particular telescope in Dumbledore's office because we may want to use it on a 3rd or 4th film.
So we looked at ancient astronomical instruments and built with drawings, sketches, this bizarre piece of machinery.
Our goal with it always, it's fantasy, yes, but we wanted to root everything in a reality. We did not want things to be purely fantastical.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning,
the greenhouse was a chance to sort of show another side of Hogwarts. So the greenhouse, it had to feel like it's existed for hundreds of years, and it had to feel like a very earthy, natural place.
The origin of the set was probably for cost reasons as much as anything initially, to go to a real greenhouse if we could. The best greenhouses in this country are in Kew Gardens. The day came that we were to scout. Anybody who's lived in London probably knows that, and the air traffic is a problem. I think we'd stepped out of the bus, we'd been there for 3 minutes, and it was quickly apparent that this was never going to work as a film location. So we came back here, and same concept actually, but suddenly the Kew Gardens greenhouse was something that we also built, part full size, part perspective, and part scenic painting, just flat, 2-dimensional scenic painting.
Today we're going to repot mandrakes.
The script calls for numerous things to fill the bookcases, desks, and other furnishings the set decorator has sourced. Some objects are antiques, some are brand new. It's up to a group of talented people from the props department to find, construct, and place all of these elements.
Stephanie Macmillan is the set decorator and is therefore largely responsible for colour and for texture. In Dumbledore's office, the idea was that he was interested in astronomy, so we really went for that, and there were astrolabes and orreries in his office. In a film like this, where magic grows out of seemingly ordinary things, that the chances are you pretty much have to make special props.
Okay, come on.
The burrows, to me, I felt that it's got to be filled with sort of magical, whimsical inventions.
Your sons flew that enchanted car of yours to Surrey and back last night.
Did you really? How'd it go?
This house is jammed full of things collected, things seen, things found, 1,000 different things. I'm sure 1,000's an underestimate, actually. And the shopping for that took place over many, many months. Stephanie and her team would go to auctions, and then some of the very special ones, the special clocks, were made by our prop-making department.
The frying pan and the knitting needles we thought would be really fun to do practically, so we actually put quite a lot of time and effort into building knitting needles that knitted on their own. In fact, one of our crew spent a long time coercing his mother into doing lots of knitting for us so that he could video it and see how the knitting needle should operate.
It's not much, but it's home.
I
think it's brilliant.
You go onto these sets and you see them for the first time and they're completely dressed. I mean, these are places that you could actually go in and live. You could actually read the books, use the instruments, sleep on the sofas because they're so comfortable. And it's an incredible experience to walk onto these sets because you believe that they're real.
Well, sit down.
Before shooting begins, the visual effects are thoroughly planned. The effects often combine film footage with computer-generated images. Creatures, such as forks, however, are partly constructed for placement in the scenes as they are filmed.
With Harry Potter, all the concepts, the sort of initial discussions, come about through meetings between the director of the art department, John Richardson in special effects, myself, primarily to work out who's going to do which bits.
Who is it?
With Aragog, we sat down in meetings at the very beginning. You know, everyone is going, well, of course, Aragog has to be CG. He's enormous, you know, it couldn't possibly be done for real. And so, sort of like a fool, I went, excuse me, I think we can build that. And it's always scary when you've built something that's taken that long and it's that complex, and the whole scene is centered around this character in one way. Sort of, if it didn't work, they were going to CG it. And in fact, when they did the rough cut of the scene, they apparently decided they don't need to CG him at all. At that point, Chris Columbus did turn around to me and say, well, you did say you could do that. And, you know, I said, yes. And it doesn't stop me being completely surprised.
Forks?
The Phoenix, it's a very complex creature to start with, and feathering is very different from hair or anything else because you're working with real feathers, and it's very difficult to duplicate that. I work very closely with the visual effects supervisors so that, you know, the guys who are actually modelling the feathers of the Phoenix in the computer can come and see our Phoenix, and we can talk to them and they can go, oh yeah, that's really lovely, but that's going to give us a nightmare, so you can offer something else. And that kind of thing goes on all the time.
Amazing! This is just like magic!
The cinematographer's job is not only filming the scene, but lighting it as well. Lighting is important because it can make a scene feel safe or scary.
Chris said, I'd like you to see the first film, and we'd like to go darker.
Roger and I set out at the beginning. Hogwarts is a place that is magical and glowing, but as the events at Hogwarts take a darker and more serious and quite terrifying turn, the film gets darker, and the magical glow starts to go away.
I think dark as a mood, how you achieve it might not entail less light, but it's just allowing the corners of the hall or the staircase to just go off into nothing.
When we get into Dumbledore's office the second time in the film, everything's resolved, so it's a much happier, warmer place.
Set and action. Be in your bonnet, Potter.
When we get there the first time, Roger and I talked about it being a much more mysterious place because Harry is at a point in the film where he's questioning who he is.
You see, I was wondering if you put me in the right house.
He's questioning, could he potentially be the rightful heir of Slytherin? Could he be doing something evil without his knowledge?
Set! Action!
We had a Steadicam operator on this film who was absolutely superb. He could move unlike anything I'd ever seen before. It liberated me as a director because I was actually able to stand next to him and take his shoulders at some point and turn him this way and that way.
Know any spells?
You actually become an active part of filmmaking because you're in there. In a sense, it was similar to the basilisk in the walls of Hogwarts, which is constantly moving and slithering around. We wanted that snake-like quality in the camera movement this time.
Working with the script, the costume designer uses the story as inspiration for their designs, always being mindful that the wardrobe complements the set. Then, hair and makeup are designed to best visually express the personality of each character.
As a school treat, all exams have been cancelled.
I think Dumbledore is one of those characters who very much had to proceed how he had the way he had already gone.
Shall we?
Dumbledore is difficult with all that hair. It's uncomfortable, especially with that he used to sit on it. so you'd always have to be there to lift it so that he could sit down.
Where have you been?
Morning, Weasleys!
I thought Mr. and Mrs. Weasley's costumes are some of my favourite costumes I've ever done. It was a big design exercise, really, doing them, because we knew a lot about them from the books, and we know a lot about where they live from the books. And then Stuart Craig and I kind of discussed ever such a lot about their home life. And we knew all about her knitting, you know, how she loves knitting. And so I think we just went on a wool and tweed adventure, you know. I imagine that Mrs. Weasley has crocheted and knitted and pulled together all these things herself. Lockhart's character. It was very difficult because in the script it tells you that he wears lilac and pink and pale blue and all these sort of colours. And really, within the colour scheme of the Harry Potter film, that doesn't work. It would look vulgar and rather, you know, like the end of the pier sort of look.
Can everybody see me? Can you all hear me?
Lockhart has the most smashing smile, and Ken's teeth weren't actually perfect, so we had these amazing teeth made. And so when he smiles, they're absolutely perfect, top and bottom, white, dead straight.
Lucius Malfoy.
We tried a lot of things for Mr. Malfoy, and, you know, that was a tricky one.
It's one of the worst things for a hairdresser, is putting a blonde wig on dark hair.
We bleached his eyebrows at one point, but it took away that strength of character of his face. It detracted. So we went with the dark eyebrows and the light hair.
Mark my words, Potter. One day soon, you are going to meet the same sticky end.
Once the scene has been shot, the editor is needed to piece the film together. Then, sound effects and music add the finishing touches.
Every day the film comes to me, from the shoot the day before, I cut all those pictures together.
What a night. 9 raids. 9!
Raids? Dad works in the Ministry of Magic, in the Misuse of Muggle Artifacts Office. Dad,
And show that to the director, where he and I massage it into the final story. What I do is I tell a story in pictures.
Diagon Alley!
And the effects editor, he does virtually the same sort of thing, but with effects. He enhances the movie. So if there's a door closing, he changes that to a much bigger door, perhaps, or he can change the whole sound of a car. So everybody's sort of making this baby grow and adding pieces, their own pieces, to the final contribution.
John Williams and I will sit down, and then we'll go through the film and talk about specific places that I'd like music to start and end.
No one ever comes in here.
Why?
Moaning Myrtle.
Who?
Moaning Myrtle.
Who's Moaning Myrtle?
I'm Moaning Myrtle.
Composing an orchestra score for a film is a labor-intensive process because both Harry Potter films are almost completely scored from one end to another. We all recognize if we can see these films without music and then see them with it, we realize that some aspect of the nourishing blood of what makes a film work comes from the music.
Harry! It's Hermione! Harry! It's Hermione!
Actually, I think I spend more time thinking about that melodic material in film scores. And when it's successful, it's a great reward, I think, certainly for me personally, and hopefully for those people who take the music away and want to play it or learn it or hear it over again.
It's the work of many talented people that make the magic finally come to life on film. Now, let's take a peek at the final results.
Professor Dumbledore?
There is sufficient evidence to have you both expelled.
So the Sorting Hat was right. I should be in Slytherin.
your bonnet, Potter.
Very well then. Off you go.
No one asked your opinion, you filthy little mudblood. Draco Malfoy is a slick-haired, evil, nasty little kid, really, isn't he?
There might be another way. Mind you, it would be difficult. Not to mention we'd be breaking about 50 school rules.
Fussy boots and an addict to school. She bosses Harry and Ron around a lot, and in a way I think she enjoys it. It's quite fun being the only girl.
Hi, Harry. I'm Colin Creevy. I'm in Gryffindor too.
Colin Creevy is extremely excited. He's always excited, and he's always, nice and happy. He's very keen on Harry. He always, whenever he gets a chance, he goes up to Harry, asks for a photograph, and he always carries his camera with him.
Cornish pixies?
Freshly caught Cornish pixies. Laugh if you will, Mr. Finnegan.
I'd describe him kind of clumsy and stupid and a comedy little lad.
Why is it always me?
Vulnerable, very scared of his own shadow. He's very scared. He gets into a lot of problems, like broomstick, hanging from chandeliers and things.
I spent the summer devising a whole new Quidditch program. We are going to train earlier, harder, and longer. He's really obsessed with it, of winning the House Cup, and Gryffindor always seem to have the best team, but Lady Luck seems to be out to get them. And because he's never won it, he is determined that he thinks he deserves to win it and should do it at some point before leaving the school.
My bestest friends think that it's a great experience, and that one of my best friends, she got to come to be an extra, so that was good fun. So she knew what I was doing every day that I wasn't in school.
2 years ago, it was something to talk about for about a week, and that was it, really. And then we just forgot about it, which is good.
My friends are all like, oh, so how much do you get paid? And ask me lots of questions.
Well, most of them are all starstruck, but there's still a couple now and again, like a little bit jealousy here or there.
My friends are all fine about it, I've not had any problem with, jealousy or anything like that. They're obviously pleased for me, but it doesn't have a big effect on our day-to-day relationships, just get on with it. I go back home and I'm still just a little guy from Glasgow.
I think in the second book, Hermione kind of develops. She becomes more friendly with Harry and Ron.
Harry! It's Hermione!
And she definitely becomes more sort of easygoing. She's kind of a little less obsessed with books and work, and she kind of settles down a bit, which I think's good because it doesn't take away her character, but it sort of just softens it down a bit, which is good.
Her skeleton will lie in the chamber forever. Ginny. He's kind of changed because his sister's now there, and he's kind of got to be the big brother, kind of looking after the sister, yeah.
Famous Harry Potter. Can't even go to a bookshop without making the front page.
Leave him alone.
Oh, look, Potter. You've got yourself a girlfriend. Yeah, he's a lot worse in the second film than he is in the first. His dad comes into play, so he gets a lot worse, and poor old Harry seems to take the blow.
Well, let us hope that Mr. Potter will always be around to save the day.
Don't worry. I will be. I think Harry's character is very different from in the first film. Basically, in the first film, Harry's very reactive to everything around him, and in the second film, he's very proactive.
You're a parcel mouth. Why don't you tell us? I'm a what?
You can talk to snakes.
It's a lot of fun. It's cool because you just think, I am so lucky. How many kids in the world would pay to be doing this right now?
I am taller than you, or I will make myself taller than you.
Okay. Are you so determined to embarrass me?
I am not determined to embarrass you. I'm determined to be taller than you are.
Same thing.
It's so much better than school.
It's been fun to work with all the people and experience that not everyone gets to do at such a young age.
Take them off. Good.
Everyone's been on this for the last year and a half. You know, they know everyone, so yeah, it's quite chilled out and quite pleasant.
All right, here we go. Let's stand by.
All the people, very nice. No one's like talks down to you or anything. Everyone's really nice. And the hotel's all big and it's all really nice and posh and everything.
I think everybody on set has really developed as actors and actresses.
The spiders flee before it, and the crowing of a rooster can kill it. Ron, this is it. The monster in the Chamber of Secrets is a basilisk.
One of the ways I think I've developed is I've now developed kind of two instincts, my instinct and Harry's instinct. And so if I'm in a situation in the film, I think, how would Harry react to this? And so I try to bring that across onto the screen.
Mudblood's a really foul name for someone who is muggle-born, someone with non-magic parents, someone like me. I think I've definitely improved because when I look at myself on screen, there's so much stuff that I can sort of comment on, and now I'm kind of sort of easing off a bit and I feel a bit more happy with the way that I'm doing things.
My favourite scene, the second one. The dueling club scene. Me and Harry have a little one fight. That's great fun to shoot, and I reckon it'd be real good to watch as well.
Malfoy had just been really horrible to Hermione, and Ron tried to stick up for her and did a spell, but his wand was kind of dodgy, so the spell didn't really work. It reflected and hit him.
You okay, Ron? Say something!
And he began to choke out slugs. And that was really fun. They tasted quite nice, actually. There was chocolate, peppermint, lemon, orange. There was all these different flavours. I thought it was going to be disgusting, but actually quite nice.
Gilderoy Lockhart had set out some pixies and they'd grabbed my cloak and pulled me up by my ears and my cloak and hung me onto the chandelier. It was cool. It was a lot of fun.
Me and Rupert had a great time because we spent about a month in the flying car together. Those were some of the best filming days, I think. It was the best of film, we could joke around and stuff. It's so much fun. Rupert is incredibly funny. Emma's very funny. Me and Tom get on really well in real life. Matthew Lewis, who plays Neville, is really funny, and we're into the same kind of music and stuff, so it's just great fun. We talk about things.
Stop putting your head up. You're cheating.
We just have a laugh all the time. There's new characters in this, so we've got new friends and stuff.
Tuck in, Harry.
Mummy, have you seen my jumper?
Yes, dear, it was on the cat.
Being with new friends, and even though they're different age, it's still fun.
Yeah. Hey, guys.
They're all really nice. Everyone's friends, everyone.
Let me introduce you to your new defense against the dark arts teacher. Me.
I came into a great family atmosphere. The warmth, the good humour that infuses the books is something that Chris Columbus, David Heyman, all of them really, that control the atmosphere, have produced. Then also the casting chemistry with Dan and Emma and Rupert. They were the people actually central, along with Chris, that made me feel at ease. Gilderoy is something of a dandy. He struts rather peacock kind of side to him. He enjoys clothes, enjoys his appearance.
Celebrity is as celebrity does. Remember that.
He's certainly a delicious character to play because, as my mother would say, if you've been to the moon, he's been there twice. He's that kind of character.
You lost me, my servant!
Lucius is a very dark character. I mean, he's a thoroughly unpleasant man. I mean, when I'm playing him, I have absolute belief that I'm right. He's the most confident person I've ever stepped inside of. He's completely supreme in his arrogance and ruthlessness. There's nothing that he wouldn't do.
What's the matter, Potter?
bit beyond your reach.
I watched the first film to see who my son was and maybe decide how to play his dad. And he's such an unpleasant little slimeball. I decided I should win him some sympathy. So you see me bully him mercilessly.
Now, Draco, play nicely.
So I arrive on set to do scenes with this boy who, and I expect him to be this thoroughly unpleasant little kid. And in fact, he's a tremendously charming young man who's a little heartthrob on the set and is annoyingly handsome, really. You know, but I'm glad that I found it quite flattering that I got cast as his dad. I asked for longer hair so people could tell the difference.
Good morning, everyone. My particular job as Professor Sprout is to repot the mandrakes and teach class second year how to do so. Grasp your mandrake and pull it up. Luckily, these kids are very nice. And also, of course, I've had all the other children because I'm talking to a class. And I can show off and behave badly because it's great, you see. If you do work with children, you can behave badly, but they can't. They can't behave badly, but I can.
Morning, Weasleys.
Morning, Dad.
It's everybody's idea of a fantastic family life, I think, here. There's something about this fabulous set. Everybody wanted to live in it. When we got here, everyone. It's completely higgledy-piggledy with mad sort of plumbing and wonderful things. The walls are covered in real children's drawings that a local school have done, you know, as if they were at Hogwarts. You know, there's witches and broomsticks and spells and monsters, and it's just... And there isn't a straight line in it. It's absolutely fantastic.
Well, now. And who are you?
Oh, sorry, sir. I'm Harry, sir. Harry Potter.
It's a contrast for Harry. Of course, it's a massive contrast to what he's used to at the Dursleys, but Harry can see that there is a lovely family life to be had, you know, warmth and all of that.
Hey, camera mark.
So, Harry, you must know all about Muggles.
It's a very long and difficult process making films like this because they are very complicated. You've got lots and lots of special effects.
Action!
And you've got lots of people who haven't acted before quite as much as other people around us. But it also means that there aren't too many egos flying around.
Dumbledore must know you're here, Harry. Thank you.
Dan and Rupert sometimes get the giggles in the afternoon, which is excellent. It thoroughly amuses me. And I encourage it at all possible opportunity.
Everyone will proceed to their dormitories immediately. Everyone except you three.
I think the most amazing thing was my son was down, who's a movie maker, he's a director, writer, and he was down today on the set, and he said, I can't believe how relaxed everybody is.
She's not dead. She's been petrified.
In all the times I've worked here, I've never seen a day pressure. It's almost like an actor's repertory company.
Innocent until proven guilty, Severus.
We trust each other, so it means smashing like that.
Hagrid!
What do you think you're doing down here?
I don't care what anyone says, even if you're in a film, the first time you see it, you're a punter, really. You are, because you don't know how it's going to work out.
Madden, Harry? You wouldn't be talking about me now, would you?
No.
There's also the embarrassment of seeing yourself 18 feet high in front of a lot of people you don't know. She's kind of like being naked in the middle of Sauchiehall Street, I would imagine.
I assure you that were you in Slytherin and your fate rested with me, the both of you would be on the train home tonight.
It's amazing how many people walk into the set and go around kicking the stone steps because you can't believe that they're made out of wood.
Might I suggest someone from my own house? Malfoy, perhaps?
It's magical, but it's also a fantastic demonstration of people's skill, and that's the great joy of filmmaking, of course, is that it's not a solitary activity. It's a huge team of people.
Expelliarmus!
It's a real opportunity for the craftspeople of the industry to show what they can do, and in a big way.
I'm warning you. If you can't control that bloody bird, it'll have to go.
But she's bored. If I could only let her out for an hour or two.
Well, so you can send secret messages to your freaky little friends? No, sir.
A year ago, he was a schoolboy who had to be told everything 1,000,000 times because he was distracted all the time, but in a sort of innocent beginner's way, whereas he's grown amazingly in his understanding of how to move around a camera.
You just ruined the punchline of my Japanese golfer joke.
Sorry.
And it is extraordinary watching him. So much more skillful now.
Yes, sir.
And it's wonderful to watch him just open up and blossoming, you know, it's rather beautiful.
Not now, Popkins, for when the Masons arrive.
When I read it, I wished I was part of the magic world, but that's the story, isn't it? It's about everybody who wants to be part of the magic world, but somebody has to play the world of reality.
Petunia, when the Masons arrive, you will be...
In the lounge, waiting to welcome them graciously to our home.
The extraordinary thing about the Dursleys, I suppose, is that they are very funny because they are very recognisable social aspirers, full of that kind of dogged, low-ceiling imagination, which means that they can't see beyond their material dreams. But, of course, that is what most people are like.
Come on, make way, make way. Potter.
I sat down with the costume and makeup department and decided on a look, trying on various things, and then we came up with this, which looks, I mean, to me like a cross between someone from the old Wild West and a medieval pickpocket.
My cat has been petrified. I want to see some punishment.
All I've got to do is just pop these in and it's an instant filch, you know. And you feel, once you put these in and you know what this all looks like, it's it all falls into place and makes it much easier to act, you know.
Today, we will be transforming animals into water goblets. Like so. One.
I think Professor McGonagall is very stern, but I think she needs to be, because it's a dangerous game, this, what she's teaching. So she keeps a sort of strict eye out on them, but she's really, well, she's quite a softy all the way in the middle.
You're going to expel us, aren't you? Not today, Mr. Weasley.
The appeal was that I often get to play wizards and things like that. It's great.
Unless the culprit behind these attacks is caught, it is likely the school will be closed.
Jobs aren't like that on the whole. You usually get to walk around in ordinary clothes. This one, you just get around to wear wizards' things, and it's magic.